From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 2 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Somewhere in America, there's a doctor who can peer into the future. There's a nurse who can access in an instant every patient's past. And because the whole hospital's working together, there's a family who can breathe easy right now. Somewhere in America, we've already answered some of the nation's toughest healthcare questions. And the over 60,000 people of Siemens are ready to do it again. Siemens answers.
Investing takes perspective. It comes from navigating up and down markets for 60 years, spotting opportunities at home and abroad. Global investing from Franklin Templeton Investments. Gain from our perspective.
Issue 1, velvet glove, iron fist.
They're not always happy with me. They talk about me like a dog.
That's how Republicans treat him, says the president in a speech at a labor union event on Labor Day. Mr. Obama exalts organized labor. He fumes at Republican opponents and their alleged negativism.
Yes, we can. Remember that was our slogan? Their slogan is, no, we can't. No, 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 no.
50 days to go, and the name of the game is blame. Blame the opponent. Keep the focus on him. For the incumbent president, the strategy is offensive. Blast the Republicans, the party of no.
When it comes to just about everything we've done to strengthen our middle class, to rebuild our economy, almost every Republican in Congress says no.
As a putative, positive yes measure embraced by the Democrats, Mr. Obama calls for $50 billion of new spending, infrastructure on roads, bridges, runways, but spread over many years and quote-unquote fully paid for. But how the $50 billion would be produced was not explained. This was not a stimulus proposal, and its chance of passing Congress is seen to be -0. On Thursday, the president called for other money measures, including investment tax credits, emphasizing research and development, the cost to be met by closing so-called loopholes of, you guessed it, corporations.
Question. By the way, the word stimulus is apparently now verboten. It was not used. The president's job approval rating is low, historically so. Did this week put President Obama back on an upward track? Pat Buchanan.
No, it did not, John. There's no doubt he was in campaign mode and he spoke better and more eloquently there, but he made a big mistake. He mentioned John Boehner and attacked him by name 7 times, and nobody in the country knows who John Boehner is. Secondly, the mosque issue and the issue of the burning Korans was a tremendous distraction all week. Third, his proposals, some of which are pretty interesting, expensing capital investment and credits like that, they're too little, they're too late, they look ad hoc, and frankly, some of his rhetoric, they treat me like a dog, is getting sort of argumentum ad misericordiam, pity me. It doesn't come off very well.
Eleanor, what's the political logic on Obama's part in hitting Boehner so hard this week by name?
Well, because you have to put a face on the opposition, and Mr. Boehner is a pretty good face. He's been in the Congress since 1990. He was part of the Gingrich Revolution. In 1995, he was videotaped on the House floor handing out checks from the tobacco industry to members while they were discussing ending tobacco subsidies. He has advocated in Cleveland just a few days before the president made this speech. He was advocating a return to 2008 spending levels and to the Bush tax cuts. So what's different between what John Boehner, who would be the speaker if the Republicans gain power, and what George W. Bush represented? So the president is trying to draw a clear contrast. It may be too little too late, but it's one of the few tools he has left at this point in the game.
Boehner's what, one of 12 kids?
Yeah.
He's an honorable guy?
Well,
His
nobody
peers
said
like
he's
him?
not an honorable guy, but
I
he
think
espouses.
Teddy Kennedy was a big pal of Boehner.
He espouses policies that got us into the ditch, and he doesn't have any new ideas. And he smokes like a chimney, and he spends a lot of time in a tanning bed. He's not your modern man.
Listen, the reason
he lives on the edge of a golf course.
Right, exactly.
The reason that Obama is now turning his gunfire onto John Boehner is that for years he's been demonizing President Bush. That no longer is working. That doesn't have traction with the American people anymore. So now he's turned to John Boehner. Nobody knows John Boehner. Frankly, nobody cares. Even most Republicans don't care about John Boehner.
He's the minority
leader.
What's
interesting is he is, and he could be Speaker of the House if the Republicans gain control. But as of now, look, John Boehner, this is a wash. But the point is that Obama's been targeting President Bush for a long time. And what's so ironic and interesting now is that because the economy is in shambles, because his poll numbers are historically low, 41% job approval, he is now reaching out to President Bush for a lifeline in terms of economics. The small business tax credits, the R&D development tax credits, these were all Bush-endorsed policies. Horror of horrors, but they were true. And what was really interesting this week is that President Obama's now former budget director, Peter Orszag, who just left the White House, made his very first public statement in support of extending all of the Bush tax cuts for everybody. So I find it very ironic and interesting.
Only for 2 years.
That it doesn't matter. I find it fascinating that, yes, once again, we're getting an acknowledgement that Bush was in fact right.
Is there any other reason why he left the White House?
Well, because
did anybody leave with him? Wasn't there a lady who went with him?
Romer left.
Who? Christine Romer
left.
What is that?
Peter
Does that tell you that
left.
they think they don't want to get off? They want to get off a sinking ship.
The rats are leaving the sinking ship. Yes,
and you think so?
The economic team. There have been some on the economic team who've been making specific arguments about extending the Bush tax cuts, even if it's just for 2 years. We're trying to rein in the deficit like Orszag, and they've been ignored.
Martin, will you straighten this out here?
Let's get back to the original question. Has President Obama done enough this week to change the narrative? Well, he's started. He's got another 50 days to go. If Obama can get back into the kind of campaigning mode that we all remember from 2008, he can turn this thing around. His difficulty is he hasn't got much to run on. He doesn't want to talk about the healthcare achievement. He doesn't want to talk about his stimulus package, although I think it did alleviate some of the worst of the downturn. And he's got not much to promise for the future, except 2 more years like this. So he's got to try and run against something. He's running against poor old Burma as a straw man. The difficulty that he really has got is that he can't stand on his own record yet because he hasn't turned the economy around.
And the record has been
pretty
bad.
You were trying to say Boehner there, right?
Yeah, I mean Boehner.
He's trying to
Martin doesn't know who he is.
He's trying to draw a contrast with the Republicans, and Boehner's pretty clear about wanting to go back to George W. Bush. And yes, the economic, I want to finish my point. The economic proposals are proposals that Republicans would like, but is this Republican Senate going to support them? No.
All right, let me end here.
That's the point he's got to get across.
We're going to spend a lot of time on politics if we can get out of this. Exit question. Are Obama's economic proposals a case of too little, too late for the midterms in about 50 days from now? Or have they come back in the nick of time to save the Senate and the House Democrats?
No, there's a couple of excellent proposals in there, as Monica said. Also, his own Senate is not going to support him on the tax cuts, the Bush tax cuts.
Too little or too late?
No, but those are very important things. But the point is, he's not going to get it. It is too little, too late.
It's too late anyway, isn't it?
They're not going to get him through, John.
Yeah.
Well, it's too little, too late to transform the economy by Election Day, but it does expose the fact that the Republicans won't even support proposals that they're for, and it does set the stage for a lame duck session after the election, where if the economy is still in dire straits, people may actually do something for the good of the country.
Well, Eleanor, you can pile on the Republicans for resisting all of this, but Obama is actually getting most of the resistance now from his own party. You've got a growing number of Democrats in the Senate, blue dog Democrats in the House who do not want to go down a more spending road, bigger government, more spending, the $50 billion new infrastructure bill. They do not want it. So the resistance now is coming from his own party.
Her point is well taken on the blue dog Democrats disappearing from the fold of Obama.
Like Senator Bennett in Colorado.
How many blue dogs are there?
54.
54, yeah.
54?
In the House.
On how many Democrats are there?
There are 200 and add 39 to 280.
39, 240?
Yeah. 57, 257.
257.
In the House.
And 40 are blue dogs?
Yeah.
40 plus.
Do you want to answer the question?
Yeah, I think it's too little too late, and Obama's trapped in doing neither one thing nor the other. He's neither gone Keynesian with a full-scale stimulus, which Democrats should do, nor has he gone orthodox. He's dithered in the middle.
It's too much. There's too much to be done. He can't do it. Also, it appears to me like his polls are in free fall. Issue 2, Democrat wipeout?
Are Democrats in the House and the Senate facing a tidal wave, one that will sweep them out of control 50 days from now? Washington Street Talk says yes. But don't blame the congressional Democrats. Blame Obama, and he deserves it, historically speaking. In politics, it's a given that when voters cast their ballots for the House and the Senate, it's on the basis of what the voters think of the president. That's what counts for how they vote. Without exception, presidents whose approval rating lagged below 50%, roughly the dividing line between modest congressional losses for the president's party and huge ones, lose big at the ballot box. So says independent analyst Rhodes Cook, and correctly so. This is obviously bad news for the Democratic leader. In fact, President Obama's approval ratings are tanking. In April of 2009, the president's approval rating was 72%. 1 year and 5 months later, his approval rating is 45%, and he appears to be in free fall.
Question, is this shaping up to be a wave election, meaning come November, we'll be waving goodbye to familiar Democrats? I ask you, Eleanor.
Well, I don't think the president's approval ratings are in free fall. He's in the low 40s, which is better than where Ronald Reagan was and Bill Clinton was in their first term at a comparable time, and they each won re-election. But I think it is a wave election because this is really, it's not about the Republicans. The best thing, maybe the only thing the Democrats have going for them is the weakness of the Republican candidates. Candidates like Sharon Angle in Nevada, Ken Buck in Colorado are hurting the ticket on down. And the anger that's in the country and the distrust of political leaders is not only aimed at the Democratic Party, it's also aimed at the Republican leadership because all the energy is on the Tea Party side of the
Do you think your fellow Democrats are going to turn out in number, or do you think they're going to be outflanked by the Republicans?
Well, the new people that Obama brought in to the process in 2008, young people, minorities, they're disappointed, they're not energized, and I think we've learned, I think sadly, that Obama is not leading a movement. He's pretty much a solo operator. And those groups are probably not going to show up. And the people who are going to show up are the angry right.
Is that the reason why this could be a blowout in favor of the Republicans? Because the Democrats won't show.
John, if it shows...
they're disheartened.
Yeah, if all the people who voted for Obama in 2008 showed up,
all the energy, John, all the energy and fire in this election is on the Tea Party, the Republicans, and the right. It's not anti-incumbent in a sense. It is anti-Washington, anti-government, and that's taken out some Republicans in primaries. But come November, it is all going to be focused on the Democrats. There are 80 seats at risk. 12 of them belong to the Republican Party, and something like 68 of them belong to the Democratic. It's a Category 3 or a Category 5.
Monica. The big component in this election are independents. It's not the Tea Party per se. It's not the Republican base that's energized. The Democratic Party and Obama have hemorrhaged the independents, 60% of the American vote here. And what's happened is that Eleanor mentioned President Reagan at a lower point in his term. The difference is that Reagan was a conservative leading a center-right country, and his policies were moving in that direction. Obama is far to the left. He's not taking the country into a ditch. He's taking it straight off a cliff. And the American voter is mad as hell, just like Howard Beale, over Obamacare, exploding deficits, out of control spending.
Can't beat something with nothing.
And 10% unemployment in an economy that's not getting better, it's getting worse.
Monica, you can't beat something with nothing. This won't be like 1994. There isn't a contract with America, the kind that Newt Gingrich had then, for the Republicans to be for. I mean, I think it's a lot of voters are saying a curse on all of your
But you know, Martin, I disagree with that.
It doesn't matter this time.
The people in 1994 did not vote for the contract with America. It was an anti-Clinton vote. Totally. This year, it's anti-democratic, it's anti-liberal, it's anti-big government.
Well, that's why Obama has only begun to fight. I agree with you right now. It's not about the Republicans, and they're just basically standing back. They're not going to do anything except revert to Bush. It's a totally unearned victory. And I want my favorite slogan for the Republicans is, government can't solve all your problems. Elect us, and we'll prove it.
Is this going to be a referendum on the liberal wing of the Democratic Party?
Pelosi, Reid. It is Pelosi, Reid, Obama.
It isn't just Obama. It's the liberal wing of the party.
It's a referendum on the economy and the fact that policies
Economic
have
policy
not
has not been liberal. This is he has not really tried a Keynesian solution. That's what the left says.
You got a stimulus package of 6% of the entire gross national product.
Not enough.
Issue 3.
Compared to double the money supply.
All right, issue 3. Viva Mexico.
Mexico is celebrating its 200th year of independence. 2 centuries. And there's good news. It has a $1.4 trillion economy, the 12th largest in the world. Mexico is a vital business partner with the United States, to whom it trades 80% of its exports. Mexico has a modern service-based economy, and it is expected to grow by 4% this year. But 18% of Mexicans live in poverty, as compared to 12% of Americans. 5.5% of Mexicans are unemployed, as compared to 9.5% of Americans. President Felipe Calderón of the National Action Party has made strengthening the economy a priority. Another priority for Mr. Calderón should be to end the drug war that has claimed 23,000 lives since he took office 4 years ago. President Calderón has blamed the United States' appetite for drugs, 90% of which move through Mexico en route to dealers in the U.S. He also blames the drug war violence on the ease of buying deadly weapons on the U.S. side of the border and moving them across the border. President Calderón also says that 80% of the 20,000 weapons purchased annually by these deadly gangs were purchased in any of the 6,700 gun shops along the U.S.-Mexico border. President Obama has deployed 1,200 National Guardsmen to secure our border and pledged $1.4 billion in assistance to the Calderón government. Border hawks want more. They are calling for U.S. combat troops to fight alongside Mexican border units to end the violence. If Mexican police cannot police itself, the border hawks say, the U.S. should take on the fight within Mexico itself.
Oh, you think those Democrats are going to flee to Mexico instead of
Well,
Canada?
that's what I was thinking. It's a good segue. Usually people say they're going to go to Canada, but why not Mexico?
All right, here's the real question. Should the U.S. fear that Mexico might become a failed state?
U.S. Joint Forces Command said there's 2 countries in the world large that are dangerous and could become failed states instantly. Pakistan with nuclear weapons and
When
Mexico.
did they say it?
They said that at the beginning of this year.
Beginning of the year. Well, you see the numbers that were produced on the screen.
Look, John,
not too bad.
There's no way to stop this narco-terrorism unless you do something about the drug demand in the United States.
Do you favor the idea of integrating American policing forces, whether military or civil, within the community of those resisting
No,
the
I don't think we want
trying
DA,
to clean up the crime?
I don't think we want DEA agents or American law enforcement
Crazy
officers
idea.
in the middle. No, I think it's a crazy idea.
You've got DEA, you've got DEA
but
officers
we need to own up to our responsibility on the demand side, and also the fact that our weapons manufacturers are shipping all their weapons to. We are the arms supplier for Mexico.
What's your point?
Can we keep a sense of proportion here? Mexico has got a lower murder rate than Brazil or than Venezuela.
Or Washington, D.C.
Or Washington, D.C. It's 11.6 per 100,000. Honduras is 50 per
1,500 were killed last year in Juarez alone. They are having automatic gunfire fights on the international bridge.
This is a police problem. It's not an insurgency.
But look,
Hillary was
I'll tell you,
wrong.
John, they will bring the American troops home from Afghanistan and Iraq, and they will be on the Mexican border in 10 years.
The guy to listen to was the last president, Vicente Fox, who only last month said it's time to legalize drugs.
Were you alarmed at all, Martin, from this complacency you're now exhibiting by the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, who said that Mexico is apparently facing an insurgency?
And she's wrong. It's not.
It is not an insurgency.
Let's
take care of that. We don't have to worry about it.
It's doing better than the U.S. economically. It was what Obama said immediately afterwards. What Obama said as soon as Hillary had spoken, the day after, he gave an interview to a Spanish language broadcaster saying, no insurgency. Whoever says that's wrong.
What do you think?
Well, I think that this is a serious national security issue for the United States. In 2007, President Bush met with Felipe Calderon, and they agreed on a strategy, mostly military equipment based. Barack Obama came in, he embraced the same strategy. Calderon deserves support from this administration, and to their credit, they are supporting him. What he is doing is expanding the strategy to include law enforcement reform, to try to eliminate or at least reduce the corruption there, and also in the judiciary. But what worked in our strategy with Colombia in the 1990s needs to be put in place.
How long did it take for Colombia to resist the cartels?
20 years to fully eliminate those drug cartels.
I thought it was more like 6 or 7 before they got. You're talking about the FARC.
It was a long time but it required
how many years before they get control of the situation there?
They're not going to get control until what Martin says happens, and that ain't going to happen.
Insurgency is generally political. This is about greed. They won't get control of it until they legalize and regulate the drugs.
The answer is 6 to 7 years. Issue 4, total recall.
We've recalled more than 500 million eggs so far.
500 million eggs. 500 million eggs recalled. The commotion was caused by salmonella. Salmonella kills about 1,000 people per year in the U.S. The bacterium is found in dairy products. If ingested, salmonella attacks the digestive tract. Obviously, salmonella is a public health problem, but it is also a national security problem. Food safety is, in fact, a terrorist dream. Large-scale food poisoning could immobilize a nation physically and psychologically. Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, chair of the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, House panel, underlines the point.
Not all of the dangers that threaten the health and safety of American families can be found in airports, border checkpoints, or harbor containers. We have seen very real threats posed by food contamination in recent years.
Is food and drug safety so big a problem that it's too much for a single agency to handle? President Obama says reductively, yes.
Many of the laws and regulations governing food safety in America have not been updated since they were written in the time of Teddy Roosevelt. It's also because our system of inspection and enforcement is spread out so widely among so many people that it's difficult for different parts of our government to share information, work together, and solve problems.
Mr. Obama's administration earlier called for a 23% increase in the FDA's total budget, and Congress gave it to him. 34% of those FDA dollars will go to food safety.
Question. Should the FDA be split up, with one wing concentrating on drugs and pharmaceuticals, and the other wing moved to the agriculture department? In other words, take food out of FDA. Drugs are enough for FDA to handle. Give it to agriculture that can move it around to their separate divisions and handle it properly. Food is big.
I think you can make an argument that food and drugs should be separated, but I don't like the idea of taking it away from an independent agency and putting it into a department.
Why?
Which is because the Department of Agriculture is almost a wholly owned subsidiary of the big meat producers and the big egg producers.
And you want that to grow by keeping food out of there.
I don't want a regulatory agency in the belly of that beast. I think you need to keep it separate.
There is too much work for a regulatory agency.
No.
Food is enormous.
Eleanor's
also, you've got water. What about poisoning?
Eleanor is exactly right. You don't want to take a regulatory agency and put it over to a place which is in bed with big agriculture, John. You should separate you. One of the problems you got is we don't produce all our own food anymore. A lot of it comes in from all over the world, John.
This nation is really going downhill. Now, if you want to accede to an existing disorder, rather than try to correct it by correcting another disorder.
Make it an independent agency. Don't put it over there.
Start off by tackling the 41% of American food that gets wasted. That's official figures from the ETA.
Oh, dude,
Look,
now,
John,
we've got enough on our...
in this particular case, you had over 1,400 people get sick because of the salmonella here. And what happened was there was a breakdown between the Agriculture Department and the FDA. The Agriculture Department was there at this particular site, and they were only there to grade the eggs, slapping grade A on all of these eggs. The FDA was supposed to come in and monitor what was going on. And in fact, the Agriculture Department did do its job, and they kept issuing reports to the FDA saying dead bugs on the floor, standing rainwater, all kinds of contaminants, and the FDA didn't do their job.
Let me give this to Martin. I give this an extra turn. Do you think that Congress would be opposed to taking food out of the FDA because Congress likes its committee ships and subcommittee ships? You follow me?
I do indeed, and Congress also likes the kind of campaign donations that they can get from big agriculture.
Correct.
And also, I think that this Congress would not give anything as long as President Obama proposes it. They'd have to propose it themselves. But I agree with that.
Now, does Tony Blair take this up at all in his memoirs?
One of the few things he doesn't touch, no. But I mean, it's very bizarre memoirs indeed.
It has now been 9 years since the atrocities of September 11, 2001. In the flux of events, financial, economic, political, social, the ongoing loss of that day can recede in memory, but not for the families, the relatives, and the friends of those who died 9 years ago. For them, every day is a remembrance of their loved ones lost, and particularly so this difficult weekend. The group stands in solidarity in their sorrow and their determination to see justice done for their loved ones. You want to add to that, Pat?
Yeah, one of the sad things is the unity we had as a nation and a people then, I think, has evaporated and dissipated, and we're back to some of the old divisions.
Eleanor.
Well, I think sometimes the political leaders exploit those divisions. I think Americans do stand united on the question of 9/11, but a lot of those feelings are still raw, as we've seen in the debate around the Islamic Cultural Center in New York.
I think it's very important not to lose sight of the fact that this was an act of war against the United States, and not to lose sight of the true nature of the enemy we still face.
I'm heartbroken that the international solidarity that stood with the U.S. immediately after 9/11 has just gone.
Bye-bye.
There's a world of investment opportunities out there. Spotting them takes experts on the ground, assessing potential firsthand. Templeton, a pioneer in global investing for over 50 years. Gain from our perspective.
If. For such a small word, it packs a wallop. If I live to 100, if Social Security isn't enough, if my heart gets broken, if she says yes. We believe IF should never hold you back. IF should be managed with a plan that builds on what you already have. Together, we can create a personal safety net, a launching pad for all those brilliant ifs in the middle of life. You can call on our expertise and get guarantees for the if in life. After all, we're MetLife.